All right, we are back here at the East Side Porch Talk. I just want to say thank you all for joining me. If you guys are here, please press that 3 so I know you're here and you can hear me. Well, look like we got some more updates, you guys, and these are some interesting details. They are telling me that the judge that was over Carmelo Anthony case has quit. Now, why would he quit all of a sudden? Sounds like something in the milk is not good. It's a lot of people that are exposing the judges and everybody around the case, and they're finding a lot of information, and that could be the reason why he quit. So let's dive on to social media. Let's see what else we can find about this case. We have Secret Service Sam here talking about Carmelo Anthony Judge Roach, which has retired just out of the blue. The link is in there. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. And what does this mean? What does it just mean that he has quit out of the blue? In my mind, he has done something wrong. He's not trying to get caught. He did what he was supposed to do, which was he sabotaged and he got Carmelo 35 years. That was a whole plan. That was a whole scheme. That's why they rushed everything. And this was very rushed. I mean, a young black man life, and they rushed it. They didn't care about his life, and they just rushed it. So this was definitely political. That's how I feel. Hey Betsy, how are you? How's it going? Hey Barbara, I'm so glad that you guys can make it. All right, so make sure you guys like this video. All right.
Sam here for the Karmelo Anthony trial update, and people are talking about Judge Roach is retiring. Now, he was a judge starting in 2007, but he is now retiring. Now, people think it's because allegedly he is scared that he is going to get disbarred, because a lot of people are saying that this whole Carmelo Anthony trial was a bust, that he wanted to get out. He wanted to make sure he had a.
And he's absolutely right. He knows he's going to get disbarred. And he's trying to hurry up and leave out so he can save his face. But trust me, if they find the truth, he's going to get disbarred. It's going to be over for him because he know he was wrong. That judge was wrong and he's going to get disbarred. So that's why he's quitting. It makes perfect sense.
Conviction so he could retire, but people are saying that he could be disbarred as a judge, and that once the truth comes out about this case, because look, they're not letting people view the video. His own attorneys seem to have sabotaged his case.
Why won't they let people see the video? I tell you why. Because the truth lies in the details. That's why, because you guys know if the video was so innocent and it painted, the white boy to be innocent, they will have no problem putting out the video. Matter of fact, you will have big time millionaires paying them to release the video. Okay. And hell, by now they took so long to release a video, I'm going to think it's doctored up. You know, they can do that AI. They can make anything look like anything. You know what I'm saying? They always lie when it comes to this video stuff. So man, oh man, comment. I want to know, what are y'all thoughts about this?
Defense, the all-white jury, people are very suspicious of what happened in this case, as we've been reporting. And people are saying he didn't allow the proper evidence to be submitted. A lot of the witnesses were just friends of the other side. So it's all very suspicious. Carmelo never took the stand. They didn't allow the video that some people saw to be evidence inside the courtroom. They only showed a blurry video. What do you guys think? I will keep you updated on this. Do you think Carmelo got a fair trial? Listen, I will be here to expose the truth behind the headlines on the.
I want to know. That's a good question, Sam. Press 1 if you guys think that it was a fair trial. Press 7 if you know this was not a fair trial. All right. Brian, how are you?
Yeah, man, I'm wonderful. How you doing this evening?
Good. Talk to me. Do you think this was a fair trial?
No, but I will tell you this though, and I will, and you know what, and I will tell you this as far as promising this real quick. I'm trying to understand what I'm doing real quick. Okay, so look, the judge knew the so-called victim's family. The white, the the white boy wasn't a victim, but just understand that. So when it comes to what's that called? The re What is it called? The retrial, the what is it? Oh, the appeal. It's over with, you know.
It's over with.
But yeah, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. It's over with. I mean, uh, I'm just gonna let everybody know that Carmelo coming home extremely sooner than 35, sooner than 15, sooner than 10, sooner than 5, sooner than 2, sooner than months. That boy coming home,
That's
and
right.
I'm just being honest with you. I mean, there's a lot of evidence. There's bias, obviously. There's pictures of him of well, not him, but the judge with the Metcalf family. I mean, so this is going to be a wonderful, an extremely wonderful point of life when this happens. I promise you. I promise
That's right. That's right.
you. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
All
ma'am.
right. Well, I'm going to put you on hold for right now. Also, I have other videos I want to play. This just came out 5 hours ago. Let you guys know the link is in the chat. If you want to come up here and speak, we would love to hear from the community. Please come up here and speak. All right. I try to make the East Side Porch a community platform. Okay. All right. So your voice is wanted and needed.
Karmelo Anthony's case seems to be getting better and better every day. You see, your boy, Judge Roach, it seems as though the apple don't fall far from the tree. Judge Roach that resided over Karmelo Anthony's case seemed to be a junior. And guess who senior was? Yeah. He worked for Collin County District Attorney's Office. Roach Sr. Come to the front. We need y'all roaches up here. Let's talk about it. Seems as though Karmelo Anthony's Judge John Roach Jr.'s daddy, attorney John Roach Sr., along with Collin County District Attorney Milner and Assistant District Attorney Greg Davis, and at that time, Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott. Sound familiar? Yeah, Greg Abbott. Were all in cahoots together to bring down the new seating judge, Judge Suzanne Wooten. Now let's get into it. I'm going to take it straight from the legal document. Read it to you. In March 2008, Wooten defeated Judge Charles Sandoval in the Republican primary election for the seat on the 380th District Court in Collin County, Texas. She went on to win in the general election and took the bench in January
Child, I'm kind of slow. I'm trying to okay, so can we get to the point in the meat of it? I'm going to have
were
to
made new and
because I don't care for all
for
this.
very dollars. Seems to be going on in Collin County. And unfortunately, Karmelo Anthony's case is caught up in the same bullshit. Well, here's proof. The apple don't fall far from the tree. Collin County's
Oh, well, you heard that. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to put in Roach in here to see what other people are saying about that Roach. Have you guys heard about that Judge Roach and him leaving, quitting? Because he's afraid that the house of cards about to fall down on him. All right. Everything is crumbling right before our eyes. Everybody's reading these documents.
This is the story of what went wrong in his trial. Counsel for defendant Karmelo Anthony was ineffective in myriad ways, each one compounding the last, collectively stripping a 17-year-old boy of every meaningful protection the Sixth Amendment was designed to guarantee. What happened in that courtroom was not a trial in any constitutional sense. It was a ceremony of conviction, presided over by attorneys who left 21 prosecution witnesses unconfronted, a self-defense claim undefended, and a young man unheard. The facts of this case demanded a defense. Karmelo Anthony, 135 pounds, 5'8", post-surgical shoulder, seated, warned Austin Metcalf not to touch him. Multiple prosecution witnesses heard that warning. Multiple prosecution witnesses believed he was bluffing. A bluff is conduct calculated to deter, not provoke. Austin Metcalf heard that warning, told Karmelo, "I'm not going to fight," at a track meet, and then grabbed him by both shoulders anyway. That sequence, decline, then shove, is not provocation under any.
Hold on. He said, "I'm not going to fight" at a track meet, but then you're going to put hands on him? Is that what happened, y'all? Press 1 if that's what happened. Press 9 if that's not what happened. If you tell me you're not going to fight and then you're going to provoke me and push me, you don't get to touch me. You don't get to put your hands on me. Who are you? You get your hand off of me. You get your hands off of me. You don't get to do that. And then you got 3 of your goons, 3 white thugs surrounding me. Get your hands off of me. Yeah, he said that for optics. He said, "I don't want to fight." That was just for optics. But he was planning to slam his ass on the ground, and they was both about to have their way with him. Do you hear me? That's what else going to happen.
Any theory Texas law recognizes. It is an independent, volitional act of a man who was warned, who declined, and who chose physical contact regardless. Austin.
All right, Robbie Blue. Can we give it up to Robbie Blue? Robbie Blue, you done blew the house down yesterday. I have so many people love to hear from you, Robbie Blue. Robbie Blue, please join us if you can. But they are saying that, Judge Roach, he is packing his bags as we speak, and he is quitting, okay? Yeah, he don't want to get disbarred, so he need to hurry up and go before they find out the bull crap that he did and get disbarred, okay?
Metcalf's twin brother stood nearby. Approximately 20 students surrounded that tent. The medical examiner, a prosecution witness, testified to a 2-inch wound on a 3.5-inch blade. Austin Metcalf's own words were, "I think I got stabbed." Not the statement of a man who received a deliberate, forceful thrust through bone, but the expression of someone whose body moved into contact he did not fully register. A prosecution witness demonstrated in open court that Austin was standing and leaning forward, his own body weight carrying him toward Karmelo at the moment of contact. Karmelo's immediate words to law enforcement, before any attorney, before any coaching, before any strategy, were, "He put his hands on me. I told him not to touch me." The prosecution called 21 witnesses. 21 witnesses whose testimony taken together built the self-defense case that Karmelo's own attorneys never made. Trial counsel never made it because trial counsel never confronted those 21 witnesses with what their testimony established. Not one was systematically examined to extract the concessions that Smith require. That the warning was a bluff calculated to deter, not provoke. That Austin independently chose to shove after declining the confrontation, breaking any casual chain. That Karmelo cried and said he won't die, destroying any theory of premeditated design. Not one was used to build the architecture of stand your ground that Texas Penal Code demanded, that Karmelo had a right to be present, that he was not engaged in criminal activity, that all his pre-contact conduct was verbal and therefore could not constitute provocation as a matter of law. The prosecution handed defense counsel the self-defense case through its own witnesses. Defense counsel never picked it up. Trial counsel then failed the motion for directed verdict, filing it generically, without precision, without citing the statute, without applying Smith's 3-part test to the prosecution's own uncontroverted testimony, without arguing that stand your ground applied as a matter of law from the undisputed facts. Had counsel argued with that specificity, either the directed verdict would have been granted or preserved specific legal error would exist on direct appeal today instead of a generic insufficiency argument. Trial counsel then allowed the prosecutor to stand before the jury and rewrite Texas law from whole cloth. The prosecutor told the jury,
Hold on, did they rewrite the Texas law for real? No way. No way. Did y'all hear that? Oh my God. He said they rewrote the Texas law right there, right before everything. Mr. Blue says, I see they always allow them to exit safety. Yes, Mr. Blue.
Karmelo should have walked away. In a stand your ground state where Texas Penal Code expressly prohibits the finder of fact from even considering whether the actor failed to retreat. The prosecutor told the jury Karmelo could only meet a shove with a shove, imposing a force matching standard that has never existed under Texas law. The prosecutor told the jury Karmelo was required to visibly display his weapon before using it in self-defense, a requirement that does not exist under Texas law and that would in fact constitute a crime under Texas Penal Code. The prosecutor told the jury that Karmelo was always going to come out on top that day and had it in his mind what he was going to do, fabricating his mental state from nothing, no witness, no document, no recording. Defense counsel objected to none of it. In Texas Court of Criminal Appeals recognized 2 months before this trial in Cuevas that prosecutorial misstatements of self-defense law can virtually strip a defendant of his defensive theory and require reversal. Even through Justice Urey's dissent, written specifically to limit that relief, the court acknowledged that when counsel fails to preserve such misstatements through timely objection, there may be an available resort to habeas on the premise that trial counsel may have been.
All right, rewind that back. I didn't catch that. Okay, well, Mr. Blue, we need you up here, Mr. Blue. Press 7 if y'all want Mr. Blue to come up here. Mr. Blue, we need you. The community needs you. Okay, so please. All right, so let me see.
The prosecutor told the jury that Karmelo was always going to come out on top that day. Prohibits the finder of fact from even considering whether the actor failed to retreat. The prosecutor told the jury Karmelo could only meet a shove with a shove, imposing a force matching standard that has never existed under Texas law. The prosecutor told the jury Karmelo was required to visibly display his weapon before using it in self-defense, a requirement that does not exist in the motion for directed verdict. Filing it generically, without precision, without citing the statute, without applying Smith's 3-part test to the prosecution's own uncontroverted testimony, without arguing that stand your ground applied as a matter of law from the undisputed facts. Had counsel argued with that specificity, either the directed verdict would have been granted or preserved specific legal error would exist on direct appeal today instead of a generic insufficiency argument. Trial counsel then allowed the prosecutor to stand before the jury and rewrite Texas law from whole cloth.
All right, so it's at 3:36. Did you guys hear him say something about rewrite Texas? Press 2 if you heard him say rewrite Texas. All right, so I'm going to go back a little bit.
Insufficiency argument. Trial counsel then allowed the prosecutor to stand before the jury and rewrite Texas law from whole cloth. The prosecutor told the jury Karmelo should have walked away.
All right, so, okay, Mr. Blue heard it. All right, cool.
Stand your ground state where Texas Penal Code expressly prohibits the finder of fact from even considering whether the actor failed to retreat. The prosecutor told the jury Karmelo could only meet a shove with a shove, imposing a force matching standard that has never existed under Texas law. The prosecutor told the jury Karmelo was required to visibly display his weapon before using it in self-defense, a requirement that does not exist under Texas law and that would in fact constitute a crime under Texas Penal Code. The prosecutor told the jury that Karmelo was always going to come out on top that day and had it in his mind what he was going to do, fabricating his mental state from nothing, no witness, no document, no recording. Defense counsel objected to none of it. In Texas Court of Criminal Appeals recognized 2 months before this trial in Cuevas that prosecutorial misstatements of self-defense law can virtually strip a defendant of his defensive theory and require reversal. Even through Justice Urey's dissent, written specifically to limit that relief, The court acknowledged that when counsel fails to preserve such misstatements through timely objection, there may be an available resort to habeas on the premise that trial counsel may have been ineffective for failing to preserve that claim. That is precisely the case. 2 months after Cuevas, trial counsel sat silent while the prosecutor dismantled Texas self-defense law before the jury, misstatement by misstatement, without a single objection. Trial counsel then allowed a provocation instruction to be given to the jury that had no evidentiary predicate, because every prosecution witness confirmed that all of Karmelo's pre-contact conduct was verbal, and verbal conduct alone cannot constitute the kind of provocation that forfeits self-defense as a matter of law under Texas statute. The instruction went further. It or produced a necessity language set the standard lower than Smith requires, allowing the jury to reject self-defense without finding the specific premeditated intent to manufacture a killing pretext that Smith demands. Trial counsel said nothing. Trial counsel then allowed the jury to convict on an intent to injure theory of murder, the disjunctive or instruction that required no intent to kill, without ever requesting a self-defense instruction that applied to that theory. Jurors who convicted Karmelo on the intent to injure path had no instruction on whether self-defense defeated it. Half the jury may have never applied self-defense at all. And then, at that moment that mattered most, trial counsel failed to prepare and present the only witness who could have told the jury what self-defense actually felt like from inside, Karmelo Anthony, what it felt like to be 135 pounds with a surgically repaired shoulder, grabbed with both hands by a 200-pound opponent while his twin brother stood nearby and 20 students surrounded him. What he believed in that fraction of a second, what terror rendered him incapable of cool reflection, what any ordinary person would have felt in those circumstances. No witness was competent to establish that subjective belief. No expert, no coach, no teammate could speak for Karmelo's mind in that moment. Only Karmelo could. And trial counsel's cascading failures, the unchallenged misstatements, the unargued statutes, the unconfirmed witnesses, the unobjected to instructions made his testimony not merely important but essential. Yet Karmelo was never told that. His decision not to testify was made without knowing that his counsel had already abandoned the legal framework that made his testimony the last line of defense. His waiver was not knowing, it was not intelligent, it was the uninformed product of counsel's failures that left him unarmed in a proceeding that demanded everything he had. When a true adversarial criminal trial has been conducted, even if defense counsel made demonstrable errors, the kind of testing envisioned by the Sixth Amendment has occurred. But if the process loses its character as a confrontation between adversaries, the constitutional guarantee is violated. While a criminal trial is not a game in which the participants are expected to enter the ring with a near matching skills, neither is it a sacrifice of unarmed prisoners to gladiators. The entire process of this trial was infected by counsel's patent ineffectiveness, which definitively altered its outcome. Karmelo Anthony did not lose a fair trial. He was never given one.
There you go. Bam, bam, bam. Come on, give it up for the white man. Give it up for the white man. And you know the white man telling the truth because he don't got nothing to lose. Okay? You know he telling the truth. So please, y'all get these likes up, and we're going to prepare for Mr. Blue to come up. He said he's going to break all this down for us when he get a chance.
That's how you set up an argument. And I will show you guys all the shit legally of every one of those arguments.
JD. Doug Geiger's defense team revealed during our interview that last night, inmates in the Dallas County Jail shouted taunts at the former officer from outside her cell while she entered lockup.
Okay, I don't know what that was about. So I'm going to go back and seeing what's going on with Roach, the judge.
The judge in the Karmelo Anthony case, Judge John Roach. Look at what he's throwing up. It's not a surprise.
Ooh! Did y'all see that? Did y'all see that right there? Press 7 if you see what he's throwing up. I can't believe my eyes. Did y'all see that? Huh? Do y'all see what he's throwing up? Do y'all see it?
We continue to tell y'all, bro, that this world is a stage. Everything is spiritual. We do not wrestle against flesh and blood. Justice system, the top figures in this world, the police officers, the people who are in control as they think they are, because we know God is in control. All of these people are in the same covenant. All of these people have an allegiance and an alliance with each other. This judge, look what he's throwing up. We know what this means. Mason, God sees all. But
All right, I'm gonna stop it right there. You guys get the likes up before Mr. Blue speak. We have 25 likes. We can do better than that. Come on, we're supposed to all come together as a community to get justice for Karmelo. Look, you don't got to get the likes up for me, but you can at least get the likes up for Karmelo so we can spread more awareness. All right. That's the least you guys can do. Get the likes up. All right. Blue, please talk. What's going on in your mind with all this information going out?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm
Good morning.
just enjoying the show and listening. Can you guys hear me pretty good?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Because I had a headphone. I just want to say, it just makes me think that expression with friends like you who needs enemies. If that was supposed to be his legal counsel, and you can't tell me that that guy was somebody who was, new to the justice system, obviously he knows when he should have given an objection. He knows how to mount a proper defense. So it seems to me like they all had a predetermined uh, conviction. They already knew what they wanted to do, and they were just following a script and going through the motion. And unfortunately, Carmelo's family was just too trusting. There was probably a mixture of fear, hope, and I think also a little bit of just naivety into thinking, like the gentleman that we just heard, and he happened to be Caucasian. It just shows you that there are some people who do have a heart, and I pray that if he gets a chance to, I think they should throw the whole case out. I think this whole conviction just shows that this was a kangaroo court. The jurors were misled. The prosecutor, he painted a narrative that not only was not accurate of the events that happened, and they coached those witnesses, but just the fact that the statutes, and that's what affect the sentencing. The statutes, I think at the very least he shouldn't have been charged the way he was charged. And lastly, I'll say this: I believe that Carmelo didn't even stab that boy. I'm starting to think that his body weight and the way he probably lunged at Carmelo probably was in the process of pulling something out. And the witnesses say that more than one person was pulling on him, tugging on him. So I'm thinking, they could have pushed Carmelo into him, or he could have fell on top of him, because that's what happens when you tussle. I know when I was a little kid and I used to play with my brother, trying to copy Hulk Hogan and all them guys. I mean, I'm surprised I didn't break his neck, because we didn't understand there was concrete under the carpet and that sofas have wood inside of them, and that's just us being children. So imagine being teenagers. There's no way that baby went there with the intention of harming anybody, and the fact that Metcalf didn't have any defensive wounds, and he only had that puncture there. I think they both were surprised. I don't even think all Carmelo wanted was for them to get off of him. I don't think Metcalf thought that he was going to, die. And now that all of this has happened, we see that narrative wise, they told the father to keep his mouth closed so he wouldn't expose that he's a card carrying white supremacist. The fact that the judge is trying to make an exit, he seems to me like somebody who was willing to take this case because he knows he was close to retirement. I've seen these same type of shenanigans when I was in the military. I've seen them in the workforce. We all have seen it, where you'll have cliques of people who conspire, right? And I feel like all of these people knew each other, and that was the miscarriage of justice, because people can have the acclimate and the ability to do what's right, but they have to have an appetite to do what's right. And we can see right now that there's like a scourge and almost an amplification of anti-black racism, like with the shooting that happened of the little boy there in, I believe it was Mississippi, at the Walmart.
Yeah, we want. What
And
are your thoughts about that? Talk about that too, if you can.
well, I mean, I've said this many a times. Sometimes when I used to have lives on X, I would complain about Walmart. I said, man, ever since Walmart became a monopoly, and I remember looking at some videos of people explaining Walmart's surveillance system, and this is no exaggeration. They say Walmart has NASA level cameras, meaning if you have your phone out and you're doing a text, they can zoom in on your phone and read your text. They also are implementing emotional software to like read your face and stuff and tell what your emotional state is. Now, why am I bringing this up? I'm saying Walmart has state of the art security. Their problem is that they hire lowlifes who are knuckle dragging racists that carry anti black racism. So, on top of all of that, they still don't feel safe enough and trust their employees. I mean, and trust well, hell, they don't trust their employees either. That's why they got those cameras, but they don't trust their customers. And when it comes to us, it just gives people a license to practice white supremacy. So you can have people who can be a Karen and a Darren and just exaggerate what they see. Walmart has had a history of getting so many lawsuits for racial profiling. It's not funny. And here's the kicker: if you win one of those lawsuits, you know what they do? Allegedly, from what I read, they ban you from ever going into another Walmart. So when
What?
they admit that they finally have done wrong, yeah, if they have to break you off some money, they make sure you're banned from ever going to another Walmart. You can be banned from going to a Walmart, just period, just off GP. If they call the police on you and make a big deal about it, they have the right to ban you, and that's why they have the facial recognition software. It's in their system; they can find you anywhere, in the United States, which makes me think very telling. The police did not arrest that young lady for stealing any Pampers. So it makes me believe that this was a severe case of racial profiling. It wasn't some civilian thinking that the lady was shoplifting. It was some overzealous employee. I doubt very seriously it was a coon. More than likely, we have a little bit of everybody who works in the Walmarts in our communities, white, Hispanic, Asian. But if it happened to be an off-code black person who just assumed, see, that's the problem right now. You have so many people who are bitter in their personal lives because they seek validation outside of themselves, and they feel insecure about their own financial well-being, so they just want to be mean and cruel. And sadly enough, the media is showing cases like Carmelo and the previous other shootings and unalivings that we've seen. It just seems like everybody feels like if I harm a black person, there's going to be no repercussions, especially if I involve the police. In this case, I guess they called the right one because that officer allegedly uh, he had black officers complain that he was using the N word. Which, if that's the case, they should basically look at his arrest record. You cannot betray the public trust, and you have implicit bias, and you don't have impulse control. There was no reason to be that reckless and fire that many rounds and take that baby's life like that, or take those ladies' life like that, even if they were shoplifting. When did shoplifting, the penalty for shoplifting, be death penalty? Why do police officers have mace or pepper spray or tasers or handcuffs? I mean, this isn't the wild, wild west where they're like, bring them in dead or alive and you get a reward. The reward is the dopamine fix that some of these failures in their own community get to still get a job in our community. Mind you, when I was doing my research further today, like when it comes to the white middle class, 68% of them don't have a college degree, but yet they're able to be middle class, meaning they're able to make $54,000 or more, or up to like the low hundred thousands. So just think about that. Whereas per capita, black people to reach the middle class have to achieve an education. And then we still don't go up to upper middle class. And that's what keeps them motivated and keeps them insecure. Not only are they too busy hating on bankers, they hate on their neighbors who live down the street, you know what I'm saying, who are upscale, who make, plus six figures. That's why the Bible says godliness with contentment is great gain. I thank God that I'm content with what I have. Obviously, all men and women have ambition, but at some point you have to be happy with who you are, because you could have a 3,000 square foot home, 10,000 square foot home, and be miserable and be a daytime drinking alcoholic. Or in this case, you got some of these people, they're middle class, they're not struggling, but they're scared of job security. And for somehow, because of lack of empathy and love, you get these Metcalf types that are bullies. It's a predominantly white community. They're middle class, but instead of you being happy, you have to sit here and let the ugliness inside of you come out because your parents aren't nurturing and your parents aren't satisfied and your parents are insecure and they're always thinking the grass is greener. But if the grass is greener, the water bill's higher. I'll land my plane there.
Oh, we like for you to keep on driving. All right. So getting back to Carmelo, if you guys are just tuning in, they are saying the Judge Roach, he's packing out and he's leaving because he's afraid he's going to get disbarred. All right. And Mr. Blue was just telling us that the whole thing was rigged. Pretty much, Carmelo team already knew what they were going to do. They knew they was going to rig it with the judge. They all in cahoots, right?
I think it's worse than that. I think this is the tragedy of Carmelo Anthony's case. When he got under that tent, he felt that human beings would have his back, that human beings would treat him just like another human being, that he wouldn't have to be in a situation where he would need to not only defend himself or even be accosted by another human being, right? So what did everybody ask during the trial? Well, did anybody stand up for Carmelo or speak up for him? I'm pretty sure because he knew some familiar faces, he probably thought within himself, man, before things get heated up. I mean, we know this instinctively as Black folks. We're not going to go anywhere we're not welcome. We don't even like to shop anywhere where we don't feel safe or feel welcome. So he didn't need everybody to be buddy buddy, but at the very least, the way his parents raised him to not be prejudiced and not be hateful, he thought, man, my friend Eddie has my back. There's people here that at least are human beings. So at the very least, people are not going to let it escalate. Or there's adults, right, that work for the school district. Everybody's going to stand up for what's right. So I don't have to worry about anything. I'm talking about prior before hands were put on him. I'm pretty sure that's what he was thinking mistakenly. So then finally, after this incident happens, right, he tells the truth. He runs to an adult. He doesn't go run away and flee like a criminal. He's out on bail. They're having his family is trying to have faith in the system. They have charlatans like Charleston White playing both sides of the fence, telling them everything's going to be okay, masquerading like they're a decent human being. Again, he was failed again, thinking he could trust somebody. So then finally, when you have somebody who's a lawyer, this is the mistake that I had to learn in the military. Because again, maybe I was naive to things because I didn't really understand racism and I didn't understand that you can have people who are doctors and they're sociopaths. You can have people who are sergeants and police officers that are sociopaths, and you can have people who are lawyers and judges that are sociopaths. The title doesn't make them righteous, like they're Jesus or like they're an angel or a disciple. TV does a good job of giving us that narrative when we're younger to believe you can trust police officers, you can trust firefighters. I mean, and thanks to Trump, now I know I can't even trust the president. It's one thing to be a bad president or incompetent, and it's another thing to be terrible and be divisive and just basically try to dismantle everything and turn everybody against each other, and that's the atmosphere and the tone that's been set. So everybody else that's in a position of leadership doesn't feel like they have to be professional. So they're going back. In other words, they're projecting what's on the inside. So unfortunately, this baby was in the hands of the justice system, but with people who don't have an appetite for justice. This was about this is about I'm white and I say so, and they were going to get even for Metcalf. They're like, okay, I know we can't do what we used to do back in the day and burn and loot and lynch somebody Emmett Till style, but it's even better. We're going to sit here and give him false hope. And we're going to make sure that we isolate the family and have people around them to get them to just arm themselves, right? Instead of trusting their instincts. And sometimes there's a difference between being prejudiced and then you using your intelligence and God giving you discernment to protect yourself. And that's what the family should have done because the father said, saw that jury and something right. At some point, I'm pretty sure there were times that they talked to that lawyer and they wanted to push back on some of the strategies that he wanted to use. But our common sense said, you know what? If I do a Google search on this about the law, something about this doesn't smell right. And that's my message to the family. And I think that's the lesson moving forward. We have to trust our instincts because they'll keep moving the goalposts. If you come from a middle class family, you don't have a criminal record, you still can be Nigger. And what does that mean in the eyes of America? Guilty. So when they were lynching us back in the day, we were wearing our Sunday's best. We didn't have our pants sagging. We sang about love. We always tried to like promote humanity and look out for and appeal to the better natures of other people. I mean, we did that for over 150 years. And in return, they still did everything they could do to disenfranchise us, make sure we weren't a part of the American middle class, deny us from owning land. When we owned land, they would run us off the land, and they were just allowed to do what this court did, to not only deny us of justice, but to also act like our humanity didn't have to be acknowledged. But one thing that I can say, if they don't acknowledge our humanity, they have never been able to take away our integrity. And that's what a narcissist will do, is they will use your integrity against you. So because Carmelo has so much integrity. He didn't try to strike Metcalf as soon as he approached him. He tried to like diffuse the situation, or it was just verbal. He wasn't being violent. The family never said something disparaging to this daytime alcoholic Metcalf. And now that he let the liquor give him courage, he's sitting here spouting off all these racial stereotypes, just letting us know how exactly he raised his children. So there's a plethora of reasons why not only does this need to be a retrial, but I say they need to throw out the conviction because the jury was not given the right instructions. Although I believe that was a white supremacist jury. Because again, white is just not a social construct, it's an attitude. So you can be Asian and think you're white and be a white supremacist. You can be Hispanic. Don't talk about the East Indians like Vivek Ramaswamy. Some of them are professional white ass kissers, and they don't care about their own people in their home country, and they are willing to practice anti-blackness because practicing anti-blackness is like spraying on Versace cologne. They just want to make sure they can cover up the scent, they can cover up the fear, they can cover up the anxiety that they feel around these same type of people. And these same type of people, I think, are littering the white middle class. They intimidate each other, they apply pressure to each other, and the only time we come across them is when they work in our community, that then will claim that they don't feel safe, that we, are beneath them or whatever. But you're too busy driving a bus in our community. You're too busy being a school teacher in our community. For some reason, you can't be a police officer in your lily white community. You got to come over here. Why? Because our people have integrity. And as long as you talk to us with respect, we'll treat you with respect. And so that's the thing that at one hand, it's scary, but then on the other, if we use the muscle in our head, like my dad would say, and not the muscle in our hand, if he gets proper counsel, just like self defense should have been a slam dunk, getting this placed in another county and showing that he did not only have proper representation, but they're probably going to be able to prove corruption. I mean, they straight up lied. He allowed the witnesses to not give the same statements that they gave before to the police. um I want to say like they probably had an agreement before the trial was set to basically say, look, convince the family to not let Carmelo speak for himself. Because even I was thinking to myself, if this boy speaks for himself, that can't help. I mean, that can't hurt. It has to help because he knows he's the only one else. He's the only other person that's alive between those two that can maybe give some evidence on what happened. They said, oh, but the prosecutor's going to pick him apart. I mean, they're always trying to pick apart the image of a black man. They were doing that for like the last year or so. They didn't treat him like a teenager. They will sit here making memes, comparing him to like some kind of sociopath. So stereotypes are not facts, but they can be harmful. And it's all about narrative. And I think that there's enough evidence here, especially as the other man broke it down, that it doesn't surprise me why the judge is leaving because he's like, I did my job. It's almost like one of those old hitmen that's willing to take one for the team. He's like, I'm going to go ahead and give a travesty of justice because anyway, I'm on my way out, and my retirement is going to be secure, and if our whole country is ran by Freemasons. That just basically means secret societies, and in secret societies, people conspire. They don't let people know what they're thinking, but when the team gets on the field, they already know what play they're going to run. And I land my plane.
Oh wow. All right. So while Mr. Blue is taking a break, give it up for him, you guys. Give him some likes, like this video. If you guys are enjoying Mr. Blue, press that 4. Let this black man know that he is appreciated and we need more of his voice. All right. So I want to go back here to the Mr. Roach. Mr. Roach. Mr. Roach is the judge that is planning on leaving.
The judge in the Karmelo Anthony case, Judge John Roach, look at what he's throwing up. It's not a surprise. We continue to tell y'all, bro, that this world is a stage. Everything is spiritual. We do not wrestle against flesh and blood. Justice system, the top figures in this world, the police officers, the people who are in control as they think they are, because we know God is in control. All of these people are in the same covenant. All of these people have a allegiance and a line show so they can get media attention, but they already had their mind made up before the trial even started. When he first was arrested, they already had their mind made up. Before he got out on bond, they already had their mind made up. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, bro. Ephesians 6.
All right. So, do you guys agree with him? Do you believe that they already had their mind made up? If you believe so, press 1. If you feel like that's not the case, press 7.
Jeff Metcalf, this to you, you racist, alcohol drinking, drug smoking bitch. Yeah, I'm on your ass, okay? I am on your drunk ass, okay? And I am going to get you back. You stay away from them kids, okay? You stay away from them kids. We don't give up about your son. Stop telling us about it. As a matter of fact, go join your son. How about that?
What?
Go join your.
What? I can't believe Lakeisha said that. Lakeisha. Oh my God. Y'all need to protect this woman. Them white people gonna hear this. Oh my God.
Son. We don't give a about your son, okay? I see what you out here doing in these streets trying to stop the movement for Karmelo Anthony. It ain't gonna work, okay? You leave them kids alone, leave them drugs alone, leave the alcohol alone, okay? And we got you because we know that you know the judge. I got the pictures. They done sent me the pictures. I done did a video on it. Go check that out on YouTube. But Jeff Metcalf, I got you.
So, Blue, what are you thought about, the father knowing the judge? What are your thoughts? Is that true? You think it's rumor?
From the pictures that I've seen and from other witnesses and people who've come up, um, I guess that's what they were thinking. What they were thinking is, even though this had national media attention, that nobody was going to do any deep digging. But in the day of technology, and also kind of like in the Ahmaud Arbery case, you do have people who have a conscience. Like some people just know. They know the monsters in their community, and they know uh, they know a travesty of justice when they see it. So I think it's better late than never, because I really wish this information would have came out sooner. But yeah, I'm really not surprised. And really, this is bigger than Carmelo and Metcalf. What this is about is sending a message to all the middle class and upper middle class white people who live in that area that, hey, this is still a sundown town. We're going to make sure we use this as an example to discourage other black people from, living around here or interacting with us, because maybe we can't put on a hood and just run them off. But between property taxes, homeowners insurance, and just making you feel uncomfortable and allowing, bullies to be able to run them up. Because what this does, they've gone through every area of people activity pretty much in every class in terms of harassing and harming our people. They've unalived a baby. They've hurt teenagers. They've hurt mothers. They've harmed the elderly. They've harmed veterans. You know what I'm saying? They took a black president and made memes of him being a monkey and an ape with bananas. So what the overall message is, we are going to be able to do whatever the hell we want to do, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's supposed to be intended to intimidate us, strike fear in us. But more importantly, it's more so to make those white people feel more secure so they can stay on their lazy butt, not get on a jury and have a consciousness. And you know what I'm saying? Like, as long as they know, like, look, the powers to be that are racist and corrupt, we run this. If you haven't taken a hint from the White House, we got to remind you in the outhouse. You know what I'm saying? On the local level, what time it is. You know what time it is. And that's what I'm saying. Like white folks know about this racist element that's in their community. Everybody who lives in that community knows who was a card carrying neo-Nazi or Klansman. They know it. And they're intimidated by some of those people. Those are the people that will give them a side eye if they think about interracial mixing. And all of those other minority groups that are Asian and Hispanic, you better believe they understand the pecking order. They understand what they're supposed to say and supposed to and not supposed to say. And that's where they'll all come together and get on code and deny a black person justice, but also try to discourage black people from even moving in the area. I need to do more homework on that area and see, just how many black folks live there, because maybe it's kind of like what used to happen to me. What I witnessed growing up in Atlanta, like there was some parts of North Georgia that black folks didn't move to, but then you had Negroes that couldn't wait, what I'm saying, to get their degree and get their stuff together and move out that way. And you're kind of like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how Forsyth County is now, but I think it's still pretty racist. So if there's some black folks that move to some of them areas, you know what I'm saying? Most of us will be looking at them sideways like, nigga, it hasn't progressed that much. Good luck. You know what I'm saying? You think just because you're a good Christian and you're educated that things don't matter. And yeah, you technically can buy a house here. But typically, immigrants make those goofy moves, like black immigrants that don't know any better, or people who think that they're better than foundational black Americans. They'll make those goofy moves and move somewhere that we know is like, I don't know if you want to move over there. I don't care how cheap them houses are. You know what I'm saying? I don't care where your job is located. You may be better off living somewhere else. You feel me?
I do. It's a lot of black people that feel that way. They feel like I don't want to be over there with Blue and his family. I want my kids to have a better education. I don't want to be around you guys, and I want to be better. I want to sit with the white people and be in the white people neighborhoods and feel like I'm amongst them. Now, with that being said, Blue, do you feel like that have something to do with upbringing? Do you feel like parents teaches their young one to put on a performance around white people because they don't say they better, but don't talk like that around these white
I,
people.
I,
Act
I
like you
think
got some sense.
I think it's the complete opposite. First, I'll put it to you like this first. They say to be a good actor, you have to be a good liar. And most good lawyers are liars. Like outside of just going to law school and understanding all the statutes, you have to have the ability to convince a jury or convince people of a narrative. So it requires a little bit of acting, deception, right? And performance. So that's why you have lawyers who are good actors and good liars that become judges and then they become politicians, which is why we don't really get much change because they know how to turn it on. They can crank up the emotions, they can tell you what you want to hear, and then they can go to sleep at night because they disassociate, they decouple, they say, well, I was just playing a role, I was just acting. Now, cast that net onto the brighter society. A lot of white folks have been doing that for the last 70 years. I've come to that conclusion that they're just good at pretending. The ones who still have money in their pocket, they got a 401k, they got inheritance, that still live in a predominantly white neighborhood. Those are not the people who get online and say the N word and try to troll us on X or on YouTube. These are the people who practice their racism in a safe environment. They're like, I'm just going to go to work and I'm going to be nice to Gigi. I'm going to be nice to Robbie. I'm going to be cordial, but I'm not going to, unless I have an invested interest with you, right? Like, I maybe can use Robbie to get a minority loan. You know what I'm saying? So I want to be his friend, or I can take advantage of you in some kind of way, and it's just going to be great for a photo op. You can tell the difference between when people are sincere. I think in college, in the military, when some white people are young and they're able to get away from their family, oftentimes they can break character and be sincere. And that's sometimes when people may end up interracial dating or make long lasting friendships. But if they go back into their environment, in their element, right, where the population is 60 or 70% white, or even if it's quote unquote diverse, when we talk about class, upper middle class and the core middle class of white folks, you really don't see a lot of black folks around them. So they just know how to pretend. Now, the ones who are passive aggressive before the economy started going in the toilet, those Karens would just call, do like what happened in Walmart. They'll just call 911 on you and you'll be surprised. Like, wait a minute. We got the call of a suspicious person. It's kind of like a joke and a gag to run you out the neighborhood. That's what HOAs were created for. Homeowners associations were created to try to discourage black people from moving into neighborhoods after integration. And now HOAs are basically crazy and out of control, right? So I don't want to curse on your stage, but there was an Asian guy who said something to this guy who was making content during, the C-19. He said, "This is a no nigger zone." And he said it with pride. So for that Asian guy to say that on camera, right, in Nevada, wherever it was, it just reminded me and let me know, like, yeah, there's certain areas they're like, I'm going to be nice to you when we're at work, when we're in a controlled environment, when we're at the DNC convention, but I don't want you living in my neighborhood because I get the psychic satisfaction of feeling that I'm better than you, feeling like I've arrived, whether I earned it, you know what I'm saying, or whether it was passed down to me through inheritance. The better I see black people doing, the more it makes me question where I am because I already feel pressure from the upper class, or I'm already trying to compete with Elon or God knows who, because a lot of them are not satisfied and they're not happy. So that's why they need negative black stereotypes. That's why they need public lynchings. That's why they need to watch movies and shows and news programs that focus on black crime. You know what I mean? They have to cherry pick those little moments of happiness because, truth be told, they feel miserable and they're filled with so much hatred and contempt. And they teach it to their children, and they don't teach them love, and they don't teach them empathy. And everything is like empathy is like a luxury. Everything has to be, it's transactional. Everything feels transactional. Half of those women don't even babysit their children. Even back in the day during segregation, my mother, my grandmother cleaned their houses, or they try to hire you to babysit. And we're not talking about rich upper class white people. We're talking about when the regular everyday white trash finally had an opportunity, thanks to the GI Bill and the government expanding the middle class. Now they could afford to live like how they always wanted to live. I want to be rich, white, with no accountability. But the people that you see acting like Karens and Darrens, those are the people who are on economic decline, and they feel insecure about their status. They think that they're going to be on the bottom rung of white society. They're either already there or they're slipping. So those are the people who will take out their anger and frustration on us and will lie and will crash out. And I'm thinking you're going to see more and more of them crash out as this economy goes in the toilet because Trump didn't do them no favors. And Elon being a trillionaire is not going to do them no favors either. Thanks to AI, that's going to take away jobs. At least 9 or 10 million of them are going to lose that middle class status, I say, in the next 10 years, just because they're not going to even be able to buy a home. They're going to be permanent renters. And what attitude do you think they're going to have then?
What are your thoughts? I know this is side note. This have nothing to do with the case, but Elon Musk planting the chips in people's heads.
Well, they always have experimented on those that they feel can't defend or protect themselves. So essentially, when you're incarcerated, it's almost like you're being a slave. Your rights are basically greatly limited. And then they know, due to financial constraints and them even making changes with what inmates can buy at the store and stuff. I've heard them say that they'll do experiments and they'll promise, inmates a little bit of commissary to volunteer for certain things. They already use a lot of inmates as organ donors. They've been doing that for a while because sometimes there's stabbings, there's killings, there's unalivings that happen. And a lot of people, end up wondering why their loved ones' organs are missing. So I think ultimately what Elon and a lot of them want to do is achieve God status. Literally, if you look up the technate and if you look up what these tech bros believe, they want like a police surveillance state. And they're already putting that in place. So they know they can't just come to everybody right now and say, we want to microchip your baby. So they're going to do all their experiments with inmates or quote unquote illegal immigrants. They're going to say that's a good way to, to police people and watch people. They got cars coming out now in the future that will do facial recognitions, and they'll be able to shut your car off. So like say the incident that just happened in Mississippi, they'll try to use that as a pretense to say, well, the police should be able to just shut your engine off. They already can to a certain degree on certain cars. They can fire an EMP and shut the engine off, but they're trying to put this technology regulated by the government, right? Making it mandatory for them to put these backdoor systems in these cars to shut them down. So not to be too long-winded, but if you really truly understand what that chip is capable of doing, basically what it does is it mimics the synaptic language of the brain. They've studied the electromagnetic language of the brain, like when you see colors or you speak, the synaptic language of the brain. And that same chemical synaptic language of the brain operates in your spine. So that's when he comes talking about, oh, well, in the future, we'll be able to bring, the sensation back to people's muscles and stuff, and they'll be able to walk again or feel again. Some of that is true because it'll work like Bluetooth. That's why understanding coding and all that is important. It's like once they understand the synaptic language and they can convert it into something digital, then all they have to do is just send those signals, and those signals will basically mimic the synaptic language and stimulate. Because if you cut a wire in half and you have power running to each end, the power is still there, just the connection is severed. So if they can get the connection to be unsevered and couple it again, that's basically what that transmission will do with the chip that they put on the spine. Now, as far as the chips and what they can do with the brain, I was doing my research on this some years ago. Remember, I was telling y'all about that uh, program. I think it's called uh, CRISPR or something like that. It's a gene editing program. I was talking to the AI and I was doing my research on it. When they start making these nano chips that are really small, see, they can start creating what they call designer babies, where they can basically manipulate not only the phenotype, like your hair color, your eyes color, your skin color. So that just means they could just create more white people. That's kind of what Who Cloned Tyrone was jokingly talking about. But I'm talking about, imagine you put this microchip with the embryo, and it basically will be like an AI that will learn the synaptic language of your brain, because everybody's synaptic uh, language is different. Everybody's mind is different. But this thing is going to learn you like it's going to have an AI program to learn how you think your whole entire life, and then in terms of learning, the whole concept of learning, that's what they said in the future. We may not need higher levels of education, because you literally can just download the programs that you need and get the understanding that you need, because they're going to understand your synaptic language and they can convert it. So you could speak another language, you could learn martial arts, you can learn how to cook. They're already doing that with robots now. They have these automated bartenders, these automated robots doing all these things. They'll copy um, what is it? They'll use software to copy somebody who's a master chef, and then they'll teach the robot to do it. Or they'll find somebody who's a great speaker, a great singer. We're already seeing that now, right? In the music industry with these AI programs that sing. Although I still think it sounds a little artificial, but this is near the beginning of it. So yeah, that is something that is here, and you're only going to see more of it. They just have to find a clever way of putting that in human beings. That's what they're putting all those satellites up, and that's why they call it Neuralink. They want everybody to have like a hive mind. Most people our age aren't going for it. But if they can convince young people that it's cool, that it's necessary, that there's no more cash, and you already accept surveillance, I don't think it's far fetched to say that in the future they'll be putting those microchips or variations of them in human beings.
Thank you so much. Everybody just appreciate you, Blue. Get the likes up for Blue, everybody. Give it up. Thank you so much. We appreciate you over here, Blue. And you're never long winded. Actually, we like when you're long winded, Blue. Another question I have for you, Blue. Everybody or the young people are so distracted with Kai Sanat, the streaming university. I was thinking, I was like, why don't these parents, get them involved with the Carmelo Anthony case? Because at the end of the day, you guys are the same age. This is going to be your future. So why aren't young black people more involved in the Carmelo Anthony case, and why are they so much distracted with Kai Sanat? And why Kai Sanat, or, those type of streamers won't put any focus on that.
Okay, well, that's a
I
multi-layered
know. Sorry.
question. No, 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 but I like it. It's very complex, but I've done enough studying that I can answer it because I was thinking about it today. What Kai Cenat is doing, how they're introducing it to the US, and I want everybody who's listening to don't take my word for it. I want you to focus on Korea and Japan because they're experiencing this now. You have so many people who are graduating from college in this new generation that can't find jobs. But to keep people to consume, there's something called benign envy. Benign envy means, malicious envy means somebody come, they're jealous of what you have and they'll rob you, they'll harm you, they'll unalive you. But benign envy just means somebody will copy you, mimic you, and their mind will be in a dream or nostalgic state. So then they don't even think realistically about probability or anything. Just everybody wants to get rich quick, like Lamont Sanford and Sanford and Son. And in the case of Sanat, when a lot of those kids went there, they felt like you big dummy. Like they're like, I went, thousands of us went here for one position because you're thinking to yourself that you're going to beat the odds. And he represents what a lot of the young people want to be. They're like, I want to be young. I want to be able to, live by my own rules. And mainly it has to boil down to money. So people see that as a pathway to success, not realizing that once somebody is corporatized, once you're corporatized and you're managed, you can't speak for yourself. I mean, think about the young lady, St. Clair, that was saying that Elon was offering. This had nothing to do with child support. He said, "I'll pay you $100,000 a month for 20 years and give her like $40 million just for her to agree to be quiet and never speak against him or X for the rest of her life." You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who probably would have taken that deal. That Stormy Daniels couldn't keep her mouth shut for 20,000. No, what is? Yeah, I think she got $100,000. She got $20,000 for what she did, and then Trump and them gave her $100,000 for her silence. You know what I'm saying? So he messed up. Them them white women are never satisfied, aren't they? But they love to play the victim. Had that been like a Hispanic lady or somebody else, they'd be like, man, $100,000 to keep my mouth shut. Shoot, I already keep my mouth shut. You know what I'm saying? Being a side piece. That's chump change. That's just somebody, she figured, oh, if you offer me $100,000, saying I can make $1 million, selling a book. So again, now how does this coincide with Japan and Korea? In Japan and Korea, they have a whole trove of young people now that feel like they can't really make it into the middle class and they're trying to get into social media. And what has happened in China and in Korea, they literally have something like what he's trying to do. They call them like streaming universities, something similar to that. And so you got people who sign contracts and ultimately they end up working for like minimum wage, trying to be the next big social media star. And if one of them, takes off or something like that, they might get a little bit of sponsorship or get a percentage if they sell products. But basically, it's like they're training people over there to become brands and independent contractors with no income stability. And so what has that led to? A lot of them feeling exhausted, depressed, and suicidal. I know we're not supposed to. I mean, that's one thing I don't like about Google.
Suicidal.
Suicidal, yeah. That's really big in Japan. It's kind of big in Korea. That's why the guy made the movie Squid Game. It was a critique of their brand of socialism. Capitalism. They don't really have a lot of social services and safety nets that they have here. So imagine these countries. Some of them they have these huge populations. You have a lot of people graduating from college, but the college degrees are worthless. That's basically the case for sure in the Philippines. You got people there who have 4-year degrees and they're working at call centers. So you have people who are highly skilled that have to just take whatever job they can get. Things haven't gotten to that point here in America, but people are starting to feel it. And a lot of the business people are like, this is a model we can follow here. You have to be asleep to believe in the American dream if you don't think that you're going to have to kind of finesse and work hard and have self-awareness. If you're just thinking like, man, as long as I just, go by the tried and true, everything's going to be okay. I mean, that's not really the case anymore. So you can't really fault the young people because they were told, go to school, right? Keep your nose clean. You're not going to have a situation like Karmelo happened. You definitely have a job waiting for you, or you can get into one of these careers that maybe have a pension plan or something like that. They are slowly eroding away all the safety nets for the middle class. So the parents are kind of in a catch-22, and I'm in the same situation. Like, what exactly do you tell young people? What I'm learning to tell them is get into STEM. And this goes back to what I said about being thankful and appreciative. If you get a job, but it's not the job that you necessarily want, sometimes you have to pay your dues and get experience. Or like I had to tell my stepdaughter one time, like, do you want to be homeless? You know what I mean? I know you want to, there's a dream job that you have, or you want to get plastic surgery done, or because a lot of times young people don't want to wait. And I think my generation was the beginning of them introducing that whole baller mentality, but it doesn't line up with reality. The black middle class is 12% in 2026. So that means almost 8.5 of us out of 10 are not making over $54,000 a year. And when it says household, that's usually combined income. That doesn't mean that you don't have people working hard. That doesn't mean you don't have people that are not willing to work hard. It's saying to break that threshold, unless you get into HVAC or mechanic, you have to have a job. So some people's jobs are not starting out the same as our white counterparts. If they start you off at 80, they're starting them off at 100. If they start you off at 60, they're starting them off at 80. That's why they say the median American income is around $80,000. I'm talking about that's for an individual for them. So they have more spending power than us. They have generational wealth passed down, and they have inheritance. We've been sabotaged. So for some of us to make it, right? You're trying to tell your kids to do it the tried and true, but this economy is changing so much. So I'm thinking that you have to push like science and tech and mathematics. And I would say there's going to be plenty of sick people, especially with them building all these data centers. You have teenage mutant ninja crackers. They're going to have like 20 fingers, 20 toes, and 2 rows of teeth. So definitely get into medicine, definitely get into engineering. You got to, encourage them and steer them to get into it and make it fun, because you don't want to raise your children in fear. That's what they want us to do. And it doesn't have to be fear. It's just we have to stop believing in these dream jobs that, like they used to say back in the day with music or acting, to say have something to fall back on. The way I'm looking at it, a lot of these kids feel despair because they're like, man, I was hoping to be the next big brand, and I'm going to save them a lot of trouble. You are qualified. You are talented. But at some point, when it comes to these secret societies, or it comes to like these elite groups, they have plethora of people to pick from that are equally qualified. It's like the NBA. They only have so many teams and so many slots. So if you don't get picked up by a team, it may not necessarily mean that you're not talented enough. They literally have a surplus, which benefits the rich. They want a surplus of talented people that they could pick from. And guess what? The more desperate you are, the less they have to pay you and compensate you. And sadly, even if you do have standards and have integrity, there'll be somebody who's willing to do whatever to be cutthroat. Capitalism creates artificial scarcity. So, and that's why we have these outcomes that we have in these juries with some of these police. Everybody's feeling this constant pressure to perform. So they're kind of like telling young people, don't have a sense of identity and believe in yourself. You need to get validation outside of the self, or you need to follow trends. You need to get into crypto. You need to do this and that. And a lot of times it ends up it kind of reminds me of like Prime America or Herbalife. It'll just be some BS. You know what I'm saying? It ends up being like, what is it? Multi-level marketing. And the only reason why it's not a Ponzi scheme is because they're offering a product. I just think the tried and true is where it's at. It's like going to the gym. You just got to be consistent and be patient. And eventually things will work themselves out, because, you reap what you sow. Some people want the lifestyle of a retired person at 25 because they see it, advertised on social media. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't achieve it. And see, that's the whole point of it, is to put that illusion to people to say, hey, Robbie don't know what he's talking about. This person made it. I'm talking about probability, so you don't beat yourself up. You know what I'm saying? I think they say on YouTube, like, there's a small percentage of channels that are like really, really, really huge. So you can't beat yourself up if you put a lot of energy in it, and it may take you time to climb up, right? So I just think that that's good for mental health. I think that's a sign of us kind of drinking the Kool-Aid that some white folks have been serving to their children, which is why they're feeling a lot of pressure that they're feeling, because the middle class is shrinking and the old way of doing things is not working. And then they finally got to tell the truth. No matter how qualified you are, they ain't trying to let everybody in Harvard. First off, the majority of the people who go there are legacy donors, meaning if their kids getting in there. So that means other people have to be recruited or you have to be selected. And then once you get there, you better believe if you're going to join one of those secret societies, if you want to have a good job, if you want to get one of these jobs in corporate America, or you want to work in the government high up, and you want to have investment opportunities, offered to you before companies go public like X. They know the game. They're trying their best to race to the upper middle class. I think some of our young people just want to be famous, and we also, want the lifestyle that goes along with it. But a lot of times it's smoke and mirrors. When I see black celebrities that I used to respect allowing some young Jewish gentleman, Aiden Ross, to have them boxing each other, that reminds me of Mandingo fighting on the plantation. Like, wow, brother, you didn't even. I mean, I know I can't be talking. I got to hit the gym, but I'm like, you know better than me that you're about to get on national TV. You look like you done drank Hennessy. You know what I'm saying? And you drank Hennessy and ham sandwiches. You didn't do no meal prepping, and you got on national TV. And the entertainment is not for us. It's cool if we tune in. It's these upper middle class white folks that are just laughing at you. Like, yeah, he comes and sings at my daughter's birthday party when I need her to, and I'm a heart surgeon. That type shit. The myth of black celebrity. So a lot of these people are controlled, and they're just waiting. If they can't do shows, they're just waiting for their next, deal to be negotiated by somebody who doesn't look like us. And that's exactly why they're not going to stand up for people who look like us, because the gravy train will be cut off. And I'll land my plane there.
Okay, so why do young people, young black people, why aren't they involved with the Carmelo Anthony case? Why don't they see themselves in Carmelo Anthony? I feel like in the white culture, they are definitely trying to get the young whites deeply involved. That was the Charlie Kirk. That was that all about. Why don't we see the same in the black community?
I think the reason why you don't see that, it just all has to do with age, like anyone under 25 and the content they consume. Like the content that they're consuming is entertainment based. So we may have people who cater to our demographic, right? That, and again, we want to know what's going on around the world. We want to pay attention. Like, think about it. A parent is going to be more concerned because you can see yourself in the other parent. When it comes to children, they're still trying to figure out who they are. They want to believe that we live in a post-racial society. Not only that, we live in a post-racial society due to Obama. So in their mind, they're going to be like, yeah, it sucks that happened to him and that happened in East Bumble, Texas. But for me, where I live, the majority of people look like me. So I'm going to be interested in the things that my friends are interested in. So we're interested in making money. We're interested in feeling like we're American. And again, most people don't pay attention to the kind of charts and the data that I do. So for lack of better words, sometimes we think we have more time than we actually do. And again, because everybody is really good in America, I think America's full of well-dressed poor people, and that's for white, black, blue, green, purple. C-19 and those lockdowns showed us the real deal because almost everybody wanted a stimulus check, and you start seeing a lot of people having to like return some of their leased vehicles. You're like, wait a minute, did Cinderella carriage turn back to a pumpkin? You know what I'm saying? Did the clock strike 12? Like, what's going on? Why is such and such losing their house and losing their car? Because you had a lot of people over leveraging themselves. And then you had jobs doing layoffs. So I just think America allows people to pretend and project more power than they really have with credit cards or taking out HELOC loans. I mean, having a good credit score is almost like a superpower, especially for a black person. But for white people, it's not necessarily always necessary because they have actual, assets and collateral. Because, great grandma laid down, passed down a house or some property. So if they go through a financial storm, they can just take out a loan, or they got, a trust fund they can tap into. With some of us, I just think that we got caught up with the image and acting, if I want to say. If mama and daddy tell you everything's cool, you're going to think everything's cool. Because a lot of times, you don't want your kids to worry. And if we being honest, up until Trayvon Martin got unalived, even I was asleep. I was thinking, man, we have a black president. It seemed like most white folks are acting like they want to do right or whatever. Like we about to, it's about to be Star Trek or something in here. Like we're going, we're not gonna have to argue and debate about whether a Nazi is a good person or not. But when I pay attention to that chart now today, it makes sense. Even when Obama was president, the middle class has been shrinking. And I'm talking about that's for everybody. So you can imagine for us. So I just think this is just a sobering moment that I'm just going to say it as cold as it sounds, but it's as real as I can say it. You need to be concerned about yourself and your children. See, if it's almost like being a Christian or something. They say the Bible's supposed to make you police yourself. I think a lot of times we'll look at other people so we don't have to look at self and give ourselves a pat on the back. But since we know we're behind enemy lines, you better make sure, especially if you have young children, that they're studying science and not just speaking pseudoscience. That if they're on an iPad or they're on the computer now with AI and all this, they can actually learn. You want to foster a loving environment and an environment for them to love learning. I'm going to say it again. You want to be a loving parent. You don't have to raise them in fear, but you need to encourage them and motivate them, to take learning serious. Also, maybe they need to see us learning. You know what I'm saying? Because if you think about it, the world is a classroom and we're forever students. There's always something new that we can learn. And matter of fact, if we stimulate our mind and we take care of our bodies, we'll be more prepared for anything they try to bring down the pipeline anyway. But I just think that's really what it is. I mean, unfortunately, children between, I say 1 and 15, their basic imprinting is going to be from their environment and from their parents. So if your parents, I'm gonna be honest, like in my family, my immediate family, there was nobody that was in the medical field. So me even thinking about getting into it, it's like I had to be a trailblazer. My younger brother, he's the one who earns the most out of all of us. And it's like I see the benefit that he got from being younger and my parents learning more, but also just how everything changes. You get better as a parent, or your financial circumstances change. So I think all of us as parents do the best that we could. I give my parents an A, especially with them having to battle systematic white supremacy, and they never cried about it a day. And now we recognize the reality of what it is. I know that our children are brilliant. I feel like every child in America has the potential to be a Mensa member if somebody encourages them to do it. But I think they want so many people focused, living paycheck to paycheck, feeling the financial pressures and stresses of society, that you just want to be proud of yourself for being a provider, because that is hard, especially if you do it alone. And there's so many distractions out here. I mean, you're competing against, billion-dollar corporations that are fighting for your kids' attention to get them caught up. And then let's not even talk about artists. I mean, you have a handful of artists that are going to talk about Karmelo, but the vast majority of the entertainment that we consume is not conscious space, because people want to escape. People want to see themselves in the people that they follow. So when it comes to young people, they basically are following models, whether that's male or female models. You look at the way somebody dressed, the way they talk. If they sit here and telling you you don't know that the record label's fronting it, but they're telling you, oh man, I'm on a private jet. I'm going on vacation. I don't care if you got to sell dope or you got to sell your body. All that matters is the money. And this is in other words, if you're not living on this level, then you're lacking, then you're behind. But then they're also not showing you the chart. Like, you're sending this message to people that the middle class is only 12%, which means there's only 12% of us. You know what I'm saying? 1.5 people, let's just say that one person in a midget that can say, man, I'm making at the bare minimum $54,000 after taxes. And then when I broke that down with Gemini or Grok, because you know how they say the average American can barely afford $1,000 emergency, they're like, well, after you take out rent, water, all that, some people are lucky if they're left with $200 to $500 after paying bills. And that's on the lower entry level of the middle class. That's where you got some people who are college graduates, but by the time they get paying for food, water, and all that, they're like, man, I feel like I'm struggling. I almost feel like America lied to me. Now imagine you're a young person and you see your brother, sister, somebody struggling that did go get a degree, or somebody's, upside down with student loan debt and they got a bunch of credit card debt. You know what I mean? And they just make it look good, but it feels terrible. Young people are still trying to figure out what path they want to take. But a lot of us don't necessarily keep it real how hard it is. When I say us, I'm not just talking about our people. I'm talking about all Americans. That's why you got some white folks finally coming clean. Like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna sit here in front and act like mayonnaise and peanut butter and apples, especially if you want to eat clean. That can be very, very expensive. So, and then they were talking about for not even upper middle class, but let's say if you get to around 80 or $90,000, same thing. Some people be lucky if they have $1,000 left after they pay bills. But when you're upper middle class, you can have $1,500 to $3,000 either as a household or as an individual, right? Left over after you pay all essential bills, you know what I'm saying? Groceries, the whole nine. And I'm just saying, like, I know I think I make pretty decent money, but I ain't gonna lie to you. A couple of years ago, I started noticing, I said, man, what I used to be able to buy for $50 used to all of a sudden start costing 80. Then now it's gotten worse. I'm gonna be honest with you, $100 is not what it used to be. I'm not saying that I can't pay my bills. I'm just not so blind and aloof that I can't tell the truth. Like, hey man, if I can notice this, then imagine people that are honest, hardworking people, right? That are feeling this. It's just nobody's really talking about it. And the president saying the economy's doing great. And if you mention it to too many people, niggas will tell you, well, man, you need to just get your weight up. Or white people say, well, you just need to pull up your bootstrap after they drink during the middle of the day. You know what I'm saying? And go gamble and beat their wife allegedly, like Metcalf. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Well, you informed us on so much. Give it up for Mr. Blue, you guys. Let's get these likes up. We can do better as a community to support this channel, the Eastside Porch Talk. Any last words, Mr. Blue?
I'm gonna do something a little unconventional. Father, in the name of Jesus, I ask you right now to bring comfort to Carmelo's family. And I ask you right now, Lord, to bless the works of the hands of everybody listening to this live. For many of us that are trying to make a dollar out of 15 cents, we thank you for your provisions and your protection. But most importantly, I thank you for your favor, that regardless of any metrics that man has, that you've opened up doors for us with employment. You've given us vehicles to drive. You've given us shelter over our head. We have the ability to swallow and digest our food without assistance. So we know that we're blessed, and we know that in the end, we can't lose with you. We know that you're going to open doors, that you're the author and the finisher of our faith. So we just need to be steadfast and have supernatural courage and to walk in love, not necessarily loving our enemies, but loving you enough to trust you to know that one day you will make our enemies our footstool. So you're going to bless us in an unconventional way because we serve an awesome God and they serve the God that they serve. And you're going to separate the goats from the sheep. And you're not a man that you shall lie. So we thank you in advance for all that you're going to do. In your son Jesus' name, I pray, amen. That's my final word.
Amen. Thank you so much, Mr. Blue. We really appreciate you. We hope to hear from you sooner than later, every single day if you can. We really appreciate you. All right.
Thank you.
I'm gonna let Mr. Blue go, and I will see you guys on the next upload. Bye.